Welcome guys to Akash PG Plus. In this class we are going to discuss INI-CET physiology questions. So in this part 1 we are going to discuss all these topics from which questions were asked in INI-CET exam. But guys, these are recall based questions, so there may be slight changes in questions and options, okay? Now starting with our question, which of the following changes are seen when person immediately stands up from a supine position? Okay, so first we will talk about the baroreceptor discharge. We know whenever there is increased mean arterial pressure is there, then there will be increased baroreceptor discharge from the carotid sinus and from the aortic sinus. And from the carotid and aortic sinus, this information goes to the medulla in the form of 9th nerve and 10th nerve. Okay, so from the carotid sinus it is 9th nerve and from the aortic sinus it is 10th nerve, which is carrying efferent towards the medulla. And medulla is a coordinating center. So when medulla detects that there is increase in mean arterial pressure, then medulla causes sympathetic inhibition and parasympathetic activation, causing bradycardia and vasodilation. But what will happen if there is decreased mean arterial pressure? If there is decreased mean arterial pressure, then what will happen to the baroreceptor discharge? There will be decreased baroreceptor discharge, so that the efferent which are going from carotid sinus and aortic sinus, their discharge will decrease. They will say to the medulla that now there is decreased mean arterial pressure. So now medulla will cause opposite thing, that is sympathetic activation and parasympathetic inhibition, leading to opposite, that is tachycardia and vasoconstriction, and trying to increase your mean arterial pressure. So this is a basic funda. Now let's see what is actually happening when person is immediately standing up from the supine position. We know first thing is there will be pooling of the blood in the lower extremities. How much pooling? Near about 300 to 500 ml. Okay, so first thing is pooling of blood in lower extremities. What will happen due to pooling of blood? There will be decreased venous return, leading to decreased cardiac output. Decreased cardiac output causes decreased mean arterial pressure. Decreased mean arterial pressure. Now we know what will happen if there is decreased mean arterial pressure, then there will be decreased rate of discharge from the baroreceptor. Write it down. Decreased rate of baroreceptor discharge. So now what will happen? Now medulla will decrease the vagal discharge and increase the sympathetic discharge, leading to, now you know, increase heart rate, increase myocardial contractility and increase vasoconstriction, leading to increase in mean arterial pressure. Okay, so this is the physiological changes which is occurring when person is immediately standing up from the supine position. So now coming back to our question. So the options are number 1, increased venous pooling. Yeah, it's there. So 1 is correct. What about 2? Immediate fall in mean arterial pressure. Yeah, it's also correct. So okay, fine. 2. Increased baroreceptor discharge. No, there is decreased baroreceptor discharge. So 3 cannot be the answer. Increased sympathetic discharge. Yeah, increased sympathetic discharge is. Reduced vagal discharge. Yeah, again it is also true. So the answer is B. Got it? Now calculate the tetanizing frequency from a given graph. So first we will talk about the tetanizing frequency. Before that, you should know this graph. This is a simple muscle twitch graph. Okay, what is simple muscle twitch? Write it down. Whenever you give a stimulus to a nerve, whenever a single stimulus is applied to a nerve, then the muscle is contracted followed by relaxation. Okay, so whenever you give a single stimulus to a nerve, then the muscle will contract followed by relaxation. So this is nothing but your simple muscle twitch. So now what is this? This is the graph which you will get on the kymograph, on the rotating drum. Okay, so this is your, remember guys, this A is your point of stimulus. Okay, this is your point of stimulus. Here this is your latent period. Write it down. This is your latent period from A to B. What is this then? This is the contraction of muscle, which is recorded on what? Which is recorded on your kymograph. So this is your contraction of a muscle, this one is your relaxation of a muscle. Okay, so this period from B to C, it is called contraction period, in which muscle is contracting. What about this C to D? Here muscle is relaxing. So C to D is your relaxation period. Okay, and in the question we have value of wave as 10 millisecond. Actually, if you see these waves, remember guys, these waves are recorded with the help of 100 Hertz frequency of tuning fork. Okay, so here you will have wave of 10 millisecond. So now we are having wave of 10 millisecond. So now we can calculate our tetanizing frequency. How? Because we are having a formula for tetanizing frequency, which is 1 upon contraction period. Write it down. 1 upon contraction period will give you tetanizing frequency. So now I told you contraction period. This one is your latent period. Okay. Then this one is your contraction period in which muscle is contracting. This one is your relaxation period. Okay. So now let's see how much waves are there in the contraction period. This is 1, this is 2, this is 3, this is 4 and this is 5. So near about 5 waves are there. So we can write that 1 upon 50 millisecond. You can write 50 millisecond as 1 upon 0.05 second. So you will get the answer of 20 Hertz. Got it guys? Okay. So the answer over here is 20 Hertz. Isn't it easy now? Now next question. Identify different types of WBCs. So first we will talk about different blood cells in peripheral blood smear. So 3 points you should know for identifying the blood cells on the peripheral blood smear. First, you should look at the size of that cell, then nucleus, and then cytoplasm and cytoplasmic granules. So first we will talk about the RBC, red blood cell. We know the size of the RBC is 7 to 8 micron meter. Okay, it's micron meter. Nucleus, it is absent. No nucleus is there. Nucleus is absent. Cytoplasm is pink in color. Here you can see these all are your RBCs. Cytoplasm is pink in color, okay, and it's lighter in center as compared to the periphery. What about granules? Granules are absent, okay, there is no granule. Now what about neutrophils? Neutrophil size, remember guys, it's just double than that of the RBC. Size of the neutrophil is double than that of the RBC, and nucleus, write it down, there are 2 to 5 lobed purple colored nucleuses are there in the neutrophil. Okay, you can get 2 lobed, you can also get 3, 4 or 5 lobed neutrophil. Okay, so this one is your neutrophil. This is 1 lobe, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th. So this neutrophil is having 5 lobed nucleus. What about cytoplasm? Cytoplasm is pale pink in color. And granules, just look over here carefully. Granules are fine purple. They are fine purple colored granules are there, and which are few in number. Okay, few in number, they are fine purple granules in neutrophils. Now what about eosinophil? Again remember, size of the eosinophil is again double than that of the RBC. This is your eosinophil. If you see the nucleus, nucleus is 2 lobed. Yeah, it's 2 lobed and it is a spectacle shaped. Write it down, spectacle shaped nucleus, 2 lobed, it is eosinophil. What about cytoplasm? Just see here carefully. Cytoplasm, it is not visible. Why? Because now cytoplasm is having a lot of granules in it. Which colored granules? It is dark red, and these granules, they are coarse. Okay, so in eosinophil we are having coarse dark red color granules. Write it down guys, it's very important. And if we compare these granules with neutrophil, then in neutrophil I told you we are having fine purple color granules which are few in number, while in eosinophil there are coarse and more in number granules are there which are dark red in color. Okay, now what about basophil then? Remember, basophil size is also double than that of the RBC, and nucleus This basophil is also having a two-lobe nucleus, but that nucleus is again not visible. Why? Because this basophil is having again coarse granules which are again more in number and they are dark blue in color. Okay, so it's very difficult to see the nucleus and cytoplasm of this basophil, but yeah, you can clearly see the granules which are coarse and dark blue in color. So if you find such cell, then just go with basophil. What about small lymphocyte? Just write it down that small lymphocyte size is near about equal or slightly larger than that of the RBC. Small lymphocyte size is equal or slightly larger than that of the RBC. So here you can see this one is your small lymphocyte. Its size is near about like RBC only, or it may be larger than RBC. And remember, nucleus of the small lymphocyte is larger while cytoplasm is less. So write it down. Here you can see that this nucleus is covering most of this part of the cell as compared to cytoplasm, which is present in the periphery like a thin rim. Write it down. So this is the your small lymphocyte. What about large lymphocyte? Yeah, we are having large lymphocyte also. So remember, large lymphocyte, the size is 2 to 3 times that of the RBC. What about the nucleus? It is also having a large nucleus which is centrally placed. Write it down. Centrally placed large nucleus. Cytoplasm, remember, it is again less as compared to the nucleus. In small lymphocyte also, I told you that nucleus is covering most of the part of the cell as compared to the cytoplasm. In large lymphocyte again, nucleus is occupying more portion of the cell as compared to the cytoplasm of the cell. So here you can say that nuclear cytoplasmic ratio for large lymphocyte is more. Why? Because nucleus is occupying more portion of your cell. Now what about the monocyte? Remember, monocyte is again, it's a very big cell. It is more than 2 to 3 times RBC size. What about the nucleus? Remember guys, the nucleus of the monocyte may be round, may be kidney shaped, may be horseshoe shaped, and remember it may be indented. Okay, and it is present on one side of the cell. So here you can see this is your monocyte, which is very big cell, and the nucleus here you can see it's like a kidney shaped, horseshoe shaped, and here you can see the nucleus as a indented. Okay, this one is your kidney or horseshoe shaped nucleus. Okay, so then this is your monocyte. Again you should know that cytoplasm of this monocyte, it is more as compared to the nucleus. Okay, write it down, it's very important that cytoplasm of the monocyte is abundant as compared to the nucleus. That's why nuclear cytoplasmic ratio of the monocyte is less, while for large lymphocyte nuclear cytoplasmic ratio is more. Okay, for monocyte it is less. Why? Because nucleus is occupying less area as compared to the cytoplasm. Now just tell me, it is which cell? This is your monocyte, yeah, and this one is your large lymphocyte. Okay, you can see the size of the cell. Okay, by seeing the size of the cell you can say whether it's small lymphocyte or large lymphocyte. Here you can see it's occupying more than 3 RBCs. If you compare it with the nearby RBC, you can say okay, it's more than 3 RBC size, so it is your large lymphocyte. Again you can see that the cytoplasm is less as compared to the nucleus. Nucleus is very big, it is occupying more portion of your cell, while here you can see horseshoe shaped nucleus and cytoplasm is abundant, so this is your monocyte. Now coming to the platelets, we know the size of the platelet is 2 to 4 micron meter. What about the cytoplasm? So this one is your what? This is your platelets. Yeah, this is your platelets, and if you see the cytoplasm, they are light blue in color, they are having granules in it. What about the nucleus? Nucleus is absent. They are very small. If you compare it with the RBCs, you can see it's very small in size, 2 to 4 micron meter. So now just tell me, what is this cell now? Now you know the answer, it is eosinophil. Yeah, here you can see the spectacle shaped nucleus, and here you can see the granules which are coarse and reddish in color. Okay, what about this cell? This is your neutrophil. Here you can see fine purple color granules with 1, 2, 3 or yeah, means near about 2 to 3 lobed, or you can say 3 to 4 lobed. Okay, so these are your neutrophils. These are nuclei, okay, which are lobed nucleus. So this is your neutrophil. What about this cell? This is your basophil. Why? Nucleus is not visible. Here you are seeing only coarse blue color granules. So this is your basophil. What about this cell? This is your what? This is your lymphocyte, guys. Yeah, and again this lymphocyte is looking bigger, means it's about 2 size, 2 RBC size. So we can term it as a large lymphocyte, but here we will go with the lymphocyte only. So this is your lymphocyte. What about this cell? This is your monocyte. It's having more cytoplasm as compared to the nucleus. Nucleus is at one side of the cell. It's a little about indented also. Nucleus is little about indented. Okay, indented nucleus is there. What about this cell? This is platelets. Okay, so the answer over here is A. Got it? Now coming to again blood practical question. Rees-Acker fluid is filled in which of the following pipette? So first we will talk about all these pipettes, starting with RBC pipette. Remember this RBC pipette, it is having a part. This is called stem, which is having marking on it. This is the bulb. Remember this bulb is containing a bead, and this bead is red in color. If this bead is red in color, then just remember it is a RBC pipette. If bead is white in color, then it's WBC pipette. And what is the function of this red color bead? This bead is for mixing the blood and the fluid. Okay, so this bulb is there, stem is there, then this is your rubber tube, and this is your mouthpiece. So these are parts of the RBC pipette. Okay, and remember that this RBC pipette, this pipette, it is used in counting of lot of blood cells. But which blood cells? RBCs, platelets. Why platelets? Remember RBC pipette, which we have just discussed, this one. Okay, remember this RBC pipette, it is used for counting more number of cells. More means what? If the number of cells are in the lakhs, if the number of cells are in millions, then we use the RBC pipette. That's why we are using RBC pipette for counting platelets, which are in lakhs. Okay, what about WBCs in leukemias? Okay, I told you that RBC pipette is for what? For counting more number of cells. That's why WBCs can also be counted in the RBC pipette in case of leukemia. What about spermatozoa in semen? Yeah, spermatozoa in semen can also be counted with the help of the RBC pipette. Again, you should know that the Haems fluid is used for RBC counting in this RBC pipette. We take the Haems fluid in this RBC pipette for counting RBC. Okay, just write it down. And if we are taking Rees-Acker fluid in this RBC pipette, then we are doing counting of platelets. Yeah, for counting of platelets, we are using Rees-Acker fluid in this RBC pipette. Now coming to the WBC pipette, I told you again it's having a stem, it is having a bulb which is having a white color bead in it. Okay, so this is your WBC pipette and it is used for counting of WBC. And remember, it means you can say that this WBC pipette is used for counting less number of cells. If you want to just see the WBCs in leukemia, you will not see with the help of this WBC pipette. You have to go with the RBC pipette. Okay, so now WBC pipette, it is used in counting of WBCs, and again the fluid which is used for counting of WBCs in this pipette is your Turk's fluid. Yeah, Turk's fluid is taken in this pipette to calculate the WBC count. Now what about this pipette? This is your hemoglobinometer pipette. Here you can see there is no marking on the stem. Okay, no marking on the stem. There is no bulb. Yeah, there is no bulb. Why no bulb? Because there is no need of dilution. If you need dilution, if you want to just mix the fluid with the blood, then you need that what? Bulb. But here there is no need of dilution. That's why there is no bulb. What about this? Remember that this hemoglobinometer pipette is having one marking, and that is your 20 micron liter marking, up to which you are taking up blood. So this is your hemoglobinometer pipette, which is used for calculation of hemoglobin. Okay. Now what about the Winthrop's tube? Yeah, this one is your Winthrop's tube. You know, it is used for ESR estimation. Okay, now next is, now you know the answer. Rees-Acker fluid is filled in which of the following pipette? I told you just now. Rees-Acker fluid, it is used for what? Counting platelets. And we are using this Rees-Acker fluid in which pipette? WBC or RBC? In RBC pipette. So the answer over here is C, RBC pipette. Now macular densa cells are from which part? It's so simple question, guys. So the answer over here is A, that is DCT. So now just quickly talk about the macula densa. We know that they are present in the distal tubules, and one most important point you should know about the macula densa is that they are very important sensor for tubuloglomerular feedback. Write it down. They are very important sensor for tubuloglomerular feedback. So in this diagram you can see efferent arteriole, this one is your DCT, okay, and these are your modified cells which are your macular densa cells, okay, and these structures are now forming over here JG apparatus. Now next question, slow waves are least in. First we will talk about slow waves. What are slow waves? Please write it down that these slow waves, they are nothing but small changes in RMP. Yeah, they are small changes in RMP of smooth muscles. Small changes in RMP of smooth muscle is your slow waves. And again remember that they are just fluctuating between -45 to -65 millivolt. Below the threshold level, this one is the threshold. Then these waves are just fluctuating between -45 to -65 below the threshold level, and they are also called basal electrical rhythm. Basal electrical rhythm fluctuated between -45 and -65, and again they are small changes in RMP of small intestine. So again you should know that they are originated from where? They are originated from interstitial cells of the Cajal, which are nothing but pacemaker cells. Yeah, they are pacemaker cell. Again you should know the frequency. Frequency is 2 to 12 per minute. Write it down, it's very important. Frequency of slow wave is 2 to 12 per minute. Now let's talk about where we are getting low slow waves and where we are getting the more, that is high number of slow waves. So first starting with stomach. So in stomach you will get 3 per minute slow waves. What about the duodenum? In duodenum you are getting a maximum, that is 12 per minute. Write it down. In duodenum it is 12 per minute, in ileum it is 8, in cecum it is 2, and in sigmoid it is 6 per minute. Okay, so maximum is for duodenum. Then now just tell me the answer. Slow waves are least in, it is stomach. Yeah, while in duodenum, ileum and sigmoid it is more as compared to the stomach. Now this is a very easy question, but yeah, it must have taken time to arrange all these order. So now first we will talk about the auditory pathway. You know the mnemonic for remembering the auditory pathway is E. coli Ma, and we know that 8th nerve is nothing but your axons of spiral ganglion. These axons of spiral ganglion, they are forming 8th nerve. So now starting with our mnemonic, E 8th nerve, C cochlear nuclei, O is superior olivary complex, L is lateral lemniscus, I is inferior colliculus, M is medial geniculate body, and A is auditory cortex. So this is a correct order of what? Correct order of auditory pathway. So the answer over here is C. Got it? Intramembranous part of membrane spanning receptor is made up of. So first we will talk about this membranous protein receptor. Remember guys, if this is your cell membrane, we know in cell membrane we are having a phospholipid layer, and in between that phospholipid layer we are having different proteins, and this one is your integral protein, transmembrane protein. Okay, so if this is your transmembrane protein, then remember guys, the portion of the protein which is inside this membrane, that portion is hydrophobic, while the part of protein which is towards the ECF or which is towards the ICF, they are hydrophilic. Write it down, they are hydrophilic. So remember, within the membrane they are hydrophobic and they are having non-polar amino acid. What about on outer and inner surface of cell membrane? They are having hydrophilic part due to polar amino acids. But if anyone asks you that this membranous receptor as a whole is hydrophilic or hydrophobic, then you will say they are both hydrophilic and hydrophobic. It means they are amphipathic. But guys, in question they asked that intramembranous part of membrane spanning receptor. Receptor is your protein. So it is hydrophobic. So the answer over here is A, hydrophobic. What is respiratory quotient in a 50 kg man who inspires 250 ml of oxygen per minute and expires 200 ml of CO2 per minute? So simple question. We know respiratory quotient is, formula is volume of CO2 produced divided by volume of oxygen consumed per unit time. And now we are having a value. Volume of CO2 produced given as 200 and volume of oxygen consumed is given as 250 ml. So the answer over here is 0.8. Okay guys. Respiratory quotient of all these, of carbohydrate, fat and proteins, you should know. So just write for carbohydrate RQ is 1, for fat it is 0.7 and for protein it is 0.8. It's very important guys. Write it down. So that's why the answer to this question is 0.8. Okay. Normality of 2 millimole of HCl is dash and 1 millimole of H2SO4. Again, it's simple question. It's 11th, 12th chemistry type question. So first we will talk about the normality and molarity. Guys, write it down that this molarity is nothing but concentration of compound in solution. Yeah, molarity is concentration of compound in solution, and normality, what is normality? It is molar concentration of acid or base component. It means you can remember it like this, that normality is equal to molarity into number of hydrogen ions for acids, and normality is equal to molarity into number of OH minus ions for bases. That's the thing you should know for this normality and molarity. So now tell me, we are having 2 millimole of HCl. Now putting all this stuff in our formula, N is equal to 2 millimole, that is we are having a molarity of 2. Okay, what about number of hydrogen ions in case of HCl? HCl is giving 1 H plus, so it is 1. So normality will become 2. What about 1 millimole of H2SO4? Normality is equal to, we are having 1 millimole, so molarity is 1. What about H2SO4? H2SO4 is giving 2 H plus ions, so it will be 2. So again we are having normality of 2 for 1 millimole of H2SO4. So here the answer will be same, that is normality of 2 millimole of HCl is same as that of 1 millimole of H2SO4. Okay guys. In this part, we have covered all these topics which were asked in INI CET exam. And in next part of video, we will see remaining questions. So thank you so much for watching Aakash PG Plus.